which is just about 20 miles north of Albuquerque. And we've got a really two wonderful poets lined up. And we'll be doing open mic, but not from here. We'll be doing the open mic from Jules will be doing that from our home in Placitas nearby. So we'll just be doing the main features, Hakim Bellamy and Bill O'Neill from Kaktus. And so anyway, we wanted to thank the management and the staff of Kaktus Brewing. We're great that they are back, that they've weathered the storm in a way. There are people eating dinner on this lovely patio. I'll show you, and or having a beverage, And so anyway, they also have takeout. So if you're in the area, give them some support. Okay. I see some other friends coming in from Washington State and Albuquerque and Ohio and all over. So great to see you all.
Yeah, and I'm recording right now because it is 7 o'clock Mountain Time. So you are being recorded, and I'm pinning you up. And so when we do we'll get started here pretty soon.
Good, and people keep coming in. I did want to ask Jules if you had anything you wanted to mention before we get going. Just that we're going to be doing donations, right?
Yeah, thank you everybody for joining us. This is the Kaktus reading series on a, here I'm going to pin myself. The Wednesday night instead of Tuesday. So welcome everybody, and we'll be admitting people when they get in. If you go to the Poetry Playhouse, poetryplayhouse.com, there's a donate button right on the home page. So we usually go to Bernalillo and pass the hat around. So we do it online. So any of those donations will be split between the poets, Hakim Bellamy and Bill O'Neill. The Playhouse takes a small percentage just to cover our PayPal. So we really want to support the poets. So I think Bill O'Neill is going first, and
Yes.
And I just want to, the chat is there, so feel free to put your chat on. You can do the reactions. The features are being recorded right now, and when the video is pinned, that's all that's going to record. So you're not going to be able to see yourself or the chat. So.
I also wanted to mention that next month we'll be back to our regular Tuesday night, the last Tuesday of October, and we have two fantastic poets, Denise Weaver-Ross from Albuquerque, who is a Poetry Playhouse author and our book designer as well, a wonderful artist as well, and George Wallace from New York City, from Long Island. He's the Walt Whitman birthplace poet. And so that should be really exciting as well. So I'm going to go ahead and read a poem to get us started. I have been posting on Facebook every day for the past month. I've been posting one poem from our Poet Speak series, anthology series. A number of you, I think, have contributed poems to it. So as we do the countdown to the election, I'm doing a poem a day. And today's was from the Trumped volume, the first volume from 2017. And it's by a Geneseo, New York poet, Eugene Stelzig. And it's called, and this one, after last night's, whatever you call that last night, this one spoke to me. It's called Things Unthinkable. When suddenly the unexpected and unthinkable occurs, things appear in an entirely different light. What was once invisible can now be seen. What was once taboo can now be spoken. and heard by all. What was once utterly beyond the pale is now the new du jour. The shape of things has completely changed at one fell swoop. The hidden is here and now, said out loud without any pretense of reserve. Soon the new order of the day will be so routine that once again it will be unheard and unseen. The familiar world is still there in vestigial form, but nothing will ever be the same again. So that was Eugene Stelzig from the Poet Speak series. Okay. Thank you all for joining us. Hi, Sandy Yanone. Hi, Holly Wilson, Forrest Courtney, many others. Destiny Jones, great. Okay, so I want to introduce our first reader, Bill O'Neill, who is the U.S. Democratic State Senator for District 13 in the North Valley in Bernalillo. And Bill grew up in rural Ohio, graduated from Cornell University, was elected to the New Mexico Legislature way back in 2008. His poems have been published in many journals, regional and national, and he's been doing a lot of work with nonprofits focusing on incarcerated juveniles and adults. And he has two books, The Freedom of the Ignored from Red Mountain Press, a novel, Panoramic Diaries, Red Mountain Press 2020, and he has a new poetry collection coming out very soon called The Definition of Empty. And Levi Romero said, Bill O'Neill's poems are graceful, fluid, and revealing. They are powerful and tender in the same breath, but this ain't no sit around, clap your hands, feel good poetry. The definition of empty is holistically intoxicating, laced with acts of forgiveness and compassion, so much of what is needed in the world right now. That's from the poet laureate of the state of New Mexico, Levi Romero. So without further ado, Bill O'Neill.
Well, thanks a lot, John. And just to clarify, I'm not a U.S. Senator, I'm just a state senator. But thanks for the elevation there.
I thought I said state.
Oh, okay. But anyway, so all these poems I'll be reading, and I want to thank John, and what a fantastic place this is. This is really special, the Kaktus Bar. Thank you, everyone. And thank you for those of you who are just dining randomly. You get to hear a couple poets. So hopefully it'll be a positive experience. But anyway, this book, The Definition of Empty, is coming out in February, and it's being published by the University of New Mexico Press, and it's been real exciting for me to work with them. Basically, there's two things going on here, content-wise. I was the executive director of the State Juvenile Parole Board here in New Mexico for 3 years, so a lot of these poems are about the young men and women that I worked with. And then personally, I will dedicate a couple poems to somebody very close to me who suffers with multiple sclerosis. So here we go. The first poem is called Joey. And Joey, little boy with brand new sneakers, pressed baggy pants, and always less juvenile than we imagine. Bespectacled and earnest about his future. This kid who 5 programs have rejected. But the ex-boyfriend stepfather surfaces like a good memory, willing to take him in to his own quarters next to the Ruidoso stables. Joey's dazed biological mother sits at the long table in all of her apology. The stepfather's girlfriend is there too, uncertain about all of this, but masking it well, her gray hair parted in the middle as they did in the 60s. Joey wants us to read the notebook, rap lyrics, poems, pencil drawings, all that he did. I take ownership of the poems more, sir, he says with his Sureños accent, because they are from my heart. He cannot resist reading one of them about his mother, who then tears up about the past and all of its absence and degradation. Hector, the stepfather, intercedes. We are going to make a cowboy out of this young man, he says. Today we love rural truth, or that pocket of red so insistent, bitter, and maddening. I've changed, miss, Joey adds. I'm no longer so gangsterous. Everything then becomes Sunday morning. Mass, as smiling we grant him his freedom, his tennis shoes giving way to cowboy boots. Off into the uncertain noon he will go now, hoping for a break with his sketch drawings of Jesus as his new family heads off into the spectacular present that will not necessarily explode into itself before they reach Lovington. So that's my homage to Joey. Yeah. Hey. Okay, this is Monday morning. This is for Joan. She pulls my arm tighter, her grip one of flowering desperation, the kind that will not give up. I did not fall today, she says cheerfully, proud of what that means. Good, I reply, monitoring her enthusiasm. There are bad logarithms, relentless in their truth, but I will protect her as best I can. We have shared the desert years and they are resplendent in our memory. Her grip nearly tells our story, that firm clenching, maybe not from the standard need, but it is what we have. She knows that I will be her last uneasy guardian, if that's what it's called for. And we flourish in our early morning routine. Today, it is the challenge of getting her to work, which means getting her out of the car and through the parking lot, and my God, the stairs. There is narrative in her group. There is narrative in her grip, and maybe one day she will paint it. So that's John. Okay, this is called Marcos. This is from Marcos. Game over. On his two eyelids, inked in a thinner line, thinner than the magic marker sized letters, love, hate, above his eyebrows. His chances may be in the distance between the two. He hesitates to sign the document, desperate despite our encouragement. I don't know, sir, he shrugs, speaking softly, grinning. I'm being set up for failure. His use of this phrase strangely coached. They don't want me in their program. They've told me as much. I just want to go home. But there is no home, Marcos, I try to say as diplomatically as possible, trying not to be distracted by his shrugging and joking as a soft boy gangster. Marcos has got imagery, the caseworker has told us before the hearing. Nobody ever cared about this kid. What is this, his third commitment to the state? He is soon to be 18 and will soon graduate into you-know-what. His caseworker is also his translator between our worlds, the two worlds, breaking it down for him as he must have done earlier when they were alone in his solitary pod. He is good, this caseworker, with his muscular black forearms and pink Izod shirt. Sign it, Marcos, his advocate says, pulling him aside. Then you will have a choice. Don't sign it and it's off the table. Peering into the future as if a poster boy for suicidal ideation, which is a term buried in his Bible-sized file. What do we say to a young man like this? His fantastic circumstance of relatives unimprisoned, or how the dark energies are always with us, reminding us of what we cannot believe. So that's my Marcos poem. Okay. This poem's called Suspended from Summer Prep School. All I ever got from that place was the desire to steal. As in when we staged what we staged in the depth of July, irresistible, all of those uniforms, jerseys, and warm-ups in that padlocked storage room. We hid our loot in a pillowcase way up in the ventilation ducts of the brand new Choate Arts Center. Thus, I became a file, like the ones I preside over now. Actions symbolic of the deep emotional stamp, our underpinnings, or the way the world looks on you early on, the way the world works on you. The world works on you early on, relentlessly, insisting upon a response. So that's my prep school poem. I didn't do well at prep school. Okay, this is called Children's Psychiatric Hospital. I got bit by a Rottweiler, but I still love dogs, she says, pointing to her forehead. Like 130 stitches when I was 4. In her room, observing what she presents on the other side of the bed, the hope in her Jesus cut out the girly things of age 14. So, Thalia, I began, what is up with this thing that happened yesterday? Running into traffic like you did? She smiles, pulling her long brown hair back. There wasn't any traffic, she protests. It was just an empty street. I take notes on a makeshift desk in my suit, trying not to be the white man. Are you really in a gang? I continue, softening her with authentic curiosity. I mean, looking into her green eyes and receiving with the dim vacancy of what is being formed. You're so young. What do they call you in here? Teddy bear? She pauses to collect her thoughts. It's no big deal, really. My friends, my cousins, they just ask you to join. The white cinder block of her room holds these memories, a history of commotion and suspension and the overall baffling presence in here of these young girls. And the incident a couple weeks back, my inquisition continues. Where does that come from? Thalia is enjoying the conversation immensely, if nothing else because of the sound of her isolation. She hit me first, she answers without apology. Then there was all of this blood. She adds shyly, I guess I hit her in the wrong place. I start to gather my files. Well, I reply, I certainly wouldn't mess with you, teddy bear. We both laugh. Let us dance around the pagan fire, celebrating the pointed stick, the kerosene of what lives underneath our lives. So that's my homage to Thalia. All right, this another MS poem here. 12 hours in the car. Let's light fires, she exclaims, my co-pilot there in her front seat, agony with the multiple lesions in her brain. We are coasting down the interstate, high above the Salt Valley. She's like Miss Paris, 1985, she adds from out of nowhere, our dog panting in the back seat. Below, we can see the triumphant freight trains that I once glided upon. The outskirts of the Wyoming State Fair, blue sky, the occasional hawk, silence. But we wouldn't wear the moccasins, she continues, as we concoct our resurrected future together. A hilltop stone house we would have, 1 story, carpet everywhere, and a bathroom of soft rubber. Maybe then I could maintain that the canyon never did make me crazy. This time I would not invent a reason to visit town. There was always a reason to visit town. Variations of thirst, and from our imaginary living room we could see the 1920s. Down below, the massive town pool with its swirling currents and bighorn rock construction. All of this we could do if we imagine it, as long as the other dark presence cooperates, no longer doomed, something else now, transformed in her freckled smile, the first one for miles. So that's 12 hours in a car. Okay. This is Kirsten, another of my juveniles, bless their hearts. Wind through her teen curls, as if Sir could transform her world. I am Sir, apparently. Where a question is asked and silence ensues, she will do anything for her freedom, which means that she will keep calling me who represents the state in this matter. My hands are tied, I tell her. Okay, let's see if we can be creative. At least you're calling instead of running. And what is it that you're running to? Remnants of a broken camp, the canvas tent all packed up, or your home, where your enthusiasm is met by the muting of a remote? the sweet amnesia of the present tense, the sugar of what can be blocked out or forgotten. I try to be reassuring in my next daily call. Hi there. This is your new friend, and the guy from the Juvenile Parole Authority. As we go over who she is versus her desire to be gone from the semi-locked facility, as with all of these children, our barter is in the trading of months and weeks. Make it September 1st, and you can final out on October 1st, on October 20th. Deal, I say. Appointed by the governor, I am now allowed to exchange time for good deeds. Of course, Kirsten is Casper in several different gangs, the little white girl at the mercy of her passion for flight. She is a runner. It is what she knows, and she can assess the opportunity in an instant. When the urge comes over her, it becomes her being, and it is to the highway she goes, where Joey, her boy, will always pick her up. Just like that, off she is again, flying to the promise of the next moment. Forgetful in the sweet wind, her dangerous thumb extended on the mid-morning highway, remembering what she never had. So there we go. Are we time-wise? Is that 20? Okay, so this will be my last one. This is Central Avenue, and this has nothing to do with juveniles. This has to do actually before I worked with the juveniles, I worked with adults coming out of prison in this great program called Dismiss House. But anyway, Central Avenue. Matching hoppity as we survey Central Avenue 1/2 hour before noon, the same broken families with their helpless progeny finding the home of their street. The street is their home. Hippity explains it to me, waving his hands as he does. Together we walk down the forlorn avenue, motels, the cheap assessment of a day, or what can be done amid spandex and where appetites reach their logical conclusion. Why bother? I ask rhetorically. The same people, this endless stream that I see in the mirror of my Volvo, people like us must need to feel viable, I guess. And Hoppity, characteristically misunderstanding, no, he exclaims, that isn't true. It does make a difference. Just ask our Hope House alumni. I could say a number of things at this point to him. Is Sam still on the avenue, gunning his stolen dump truck? Is the whole point simply to not bounce checks? To be normal enough to safely navigate the mall? Or how about this? The avenue waits here every day for what washes in, the dry air of our longing. Or this, how would my life have been without this need to improve the surrounding world? But I don't say any of these things. See, Hippity says, Hippity continues in his not getting. It is undeniable. We can improve our lot. Okay, but it will always be there as a man slows down and detours around the block. Need that drives our being. She awaits on the street. Or the cavernous movie theaters jammed without surprise. Everything becoming way too simple. The beaming couples holding their newborns like collateral. So anyway, that's all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bill. Next up, oh, we got John, yay.
Thank you, Bill O'Neill. Yeah. I see that first person dropped some money in the bowl. That's great. Maybe I'll put it out here in case anybody wants to.
We have passed the hat
Those of you,
in person.
yeah, those of you at home can go to the Jules Poetry Playhouse Facebook page and donate there. The recording of the features will also be, as of tomorrow, on the Facebook page of Jules Poetry Playhouse. So you can take a look there as well.
poetryplayhouse.com.
Okay, poetryplayhouse.com. That as well. Okay.
It'll be on YouTube and we'll post it everywhere. So
yeah, great. Thank you, Jules. And thank you, Bill. That was really powerful and just incredible storytelling and such, you know, such a glimpse into lives that most of us don't experience. So anyway, thank you. Our next featured poet it needs no introduction around these parts. Hakim Bellamy was the inaugural poet laureate of the city of Albuquerque. And before that, he was a national, slam champion. He's had work anthologized in many, many journals, and has done a lot of community service and public work. His West End Press did a book of his in 2013 called Swear. Swimming with Elephants Publications in 2015 did his Prayer Flag Poems for Nepal. And then with another fine Albuquerque poet, Carlos Contreras, he did a collaborative project called On a Tuesday. And then more recently, We Are Neighbors. So Hakim Bellamy.
Thank you, John. Hello, everybody in Zoom Landia. I can see you now. This is, I'm going to admit this person. They're in the waiting room.
Oh yeah, no, I'll admit him. Yeah,
you got it. Jules got it. Okay, I was like, it sucks to be stuck. It sucks to be stuck in Zoom purgatory. I live there.
Zoom land, and you're out there. This is really fun.
Right. And hello to the physical audience, because people are together again. So thank you all for being out here. And, literally risking your lives to be here. I just want you to know I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
You're worth it.
So I'm gonna share some poems. I want to say this. Bill O'Neill is one of my personal mentors. He's helped me out professionally and personally with many things. The work that he shared with you tonight around our young people who are behind walls, because that's where we put people when they violate our collective rules of society, is near and dear to my heart. And it's a connection between him and I, and John and I, because John once brought me to the Rochester Correctional Facility to read poetry with inmates in Rochester, New York. And so not all poets do that, but I'm lucky to be in the company of poets that do, and kind of share that thing that might give someone light when they come out and get on the other side, because we all need it. I'm gonna start with some poems about Albuquerque. Then I'm gonna veer into some poems about being Black in America, because I'm Black in America. And then I'll end with some poems that actually the last poem is called Encore, and it's something that I wrote actually for young poets and artists for the National Art Educators Association, and they're a group out of DC that is kind of like a membership organization for art teachers and art students around the country. And as you know, our high schoolers, our graduating seniors lost a lot of the rituals and rites of passage that we all got to do, like no prom, no senior show, no graduation, at least not in the traditional sense. And so I thought it was cool that the poem was named Encore, and I'll end with it. Not that you all will want an encore, but poetry on Wednesday night on a patio at Kaktus. It's cool. So I'm gonna start with a poem for how many of y'all are soccer fans? No? Any soccer fans? Word. Football. It's really called football. Thank you for that. Really called football. But you Americans call it soccer. And there's a team here in New Mexico United, right? In fact, I wore their mask. They're playing tonight in 2 minutes. They start. And I actually wrote them a poem about a year ago. And that's what I'm going to start off with. It's the slammiest thing I brought tonight. Everything else I'm gonna read because I'm old and I wear glasses. But this one is memorized. It's called Open Letter to Any Team Unlucky Enough to Have a New Mexico United Home Game Land Up on Their Schedule. Very long title. Poem's not that long. AKA, you're welcome. Dear insert random team name here. You are not the first someones from somewhere who have tried to come here and conquer us, and you won't be the last. This is not a game, not to us. Consider it a blessing to witness this history in the making, this writing our own origin story where we are the heroes, where no one is coming to save you, and where victory keeps repeating itself. Consider it the curse The way we bury teams in the hole they dug for themselves in the first half, and how we make them want to turn around and break up with their hometown by the end of the second. Good food, good drink, good looks, good weather, and good times. We welcome you to this multiverse of riches. But when that whistle blows, we meal wolf like it's supper time and chupacabras on the menu. We are the away game your mama warned you about, where we don't have fans, we have family. And they are bigger and louder than yours, where our ancestors have season tickets. So if it always feels like there's twice as many of us, it's because we are from where the dances we do on this pitch are as sacred as grass is scarce, where football is our second tongue, bilingual enough to read the game with both feet, where being immune to altitude sickness is a thing, where it's never lonely at the top when somos unidos, where we no comprende, wait your turn, or first year team, where we always take the field of battle like we got a big old chip on our shoulder, a big old sandia on our shoulder, where the chip is so close we can taste it. Welcome to the closest you will ever get to playing soccer on another planet, to the lab of all labyrinths, home of the champs of enchantment, where we don't charge extra for the chile and the sunsets are free, where our second sport is being unforgettable. And when it comes to that, we have nothing to lose. Go United. I hope y'all win tonight. That was for them. That's it. I'm gonna start calling that prayer for New Mexico United. I'm from Philadelphia, which means I am an Eagles fan, which means I hate my life right now if you follow national football. So I feel like those kind of sports teams, those that are playing and risking their lives too, deserve a prayer, because God help us, I've been praying for the Eagles. So this one is another poem for Albuquerque, and I wrote it as part of a hip hop track I did with a friend of mine that goes by the name of UIM. He's a hip hop artist, and he was a resident physician at UNMH. Now he's doing his other part of his practicum in San Francisco. He is a first generation Pakistani American guy, and as a guy who grew up in Philadelphia on the East Coast, I'm a huge fan of hip hop, and it's hard to find guys that are 20 years younger than me that love it as much and in the same way. And this doctor did that. And so he had a poem called Our Town, or a song called Our Town, and he asked me to write a rap for it, and I did. But we started that rap with this poem. So how did it go? Okay, here we go. I said, my town is the greatest, when they said, make Albuquerque great again. Never scared like the Pueblo Revolt, made Albuquerque brave again. We're the creation stories creators, but don't be surprised when we fancy ourselves story creators, created in God's own image. So please pardon our transition to Mother Nature. We, transgender, trans language, trans nation, and transracial. Translation raza cosmica might as well be the Zia symbol for transportation. Might as well, big I, our third eye, north, south, east, west. Been a bullseye for migration ever since we rat-a-tat-tat-tat-tatted that codex on our chest. My city, relentless. Where the living is more, but the rent's less. Where peace of land has always meant peace of mind, and my parcientes understand that the Cibula Coronado could never find was buried deep down inside the people he never mined. My city. 5,300 feet above sea level, so believe me when I say you can't see us. My city been greater than great again since Albuquerque was Tiwa. Whether food, weather, or people, there are no wrong reasons to fall for all our seasons. My city got limitless vistas with no visas, make believers out of non-believers, turn I have a dreamers into mere mortal human beings. I suppose you could blame our skies that don't quit. We right at home with those ideas that don't fit, where God put the goalposts so far apart that our prayers always go in them, where the table is always set to welcome saints and sinners, where it's never Last Supper because there's always another feast. My city be the greatest, pound for pound, my city be the greatest pretty champ like Ali. His mama named him Play. And yeah, we got that pottery. Got that more in our blood like we done found little Steve. So many Urkels in the lab that you could call us Sandia. Throw it up for my city, if you down for my people. Thank you. Thank you. So John's keeping an eye on my time. I'm gonna run through poems that are shorter than the memorized ones, which is odd because you would think the shorter ones would be easier to memorize. But these are like a lot of newer poems that were written during the pandemic, because there wasn't anything else to do. And this was written like right at the beginning when we were in the midst, the country was in the midst of the movement for Black lives and kind of this third iteration. So these poems are, you know, American and patriotic as I get. Okay, it's called Dear Whiteness. What if I told you you did not have to give back what was taken? Histories are difficult to replace, and no matter how promising the future, I have at least 3 ancestors, all suicide survivors, who'd pinky swear to it not being a fair trade. What if I told you I don't want your daughter, your neighborhood, your salary, or your apology? What if I told you I only want right now? What if I told you what I want right now? What if I told you I don't want your life, no matter how badly I want back the ones you took? What if I knew no matter what I want, you'd still say no? What if I told you you don't have to go home or to heaven or to hell? What if I told you you do not have to give up your color? All you have to give up is your blindness. I realized that I didn't bold the titles, so this looks like one long poem, and now I am confused. So 1 second. Invisible Flood, The Storm. This was written at the beginning of the pandemic, and I work in City Hall. I work for the city of Albuquerque now, Cultural Services Department, and I'm on the 6th floor of Old City Hall. And at the beginning of the pandemic, I swear that the birds were like pranking us. And I have my office is all windows, and I had these birds that would come and just like sing. And I never noticed it before because of all the traffic and people were going places and doing things, you know, like before the pandemic. And then it was really quiet downtown all the time. And you could literally hear the birds clear as day, as though they'd never been there before. And I actually saw an NPR article that talked about that. And they were like, actually, there's not more birds and they're not louder. It's just quieter. And in fact, the decibel level of their songs is quieter because they don't have to compete with noise, with as much noise. I also see a lot of dead birds since the pandemic started on my jog. I don't know what that means. I think that's some Edgar Allan Poe shit that I don't really want to mess with. So anyway, this is called Invisible Flood, The Storm. The last time the world purged itself, we were water broke. This go round, money broke. 2 of anything became difficult to come by, particularly mass. Some say the reset was so necessary that the birds, immune to economic sterilization, somehow miraculously tripled their population overnight. Boomers, evidenced by the earnest of their song. I don't know if there are actually more of them, or whether they are simply singing louder, or if it was just the silence before. That's Invisible Flood. This one's called House of Cards, and this one, it's about, I would say it's about playing cards, but it's really about protests, and you can figure it out. Okay. You know, and that show was good, but then Kevin Spacey did that stuff, and Kevin Spacey used to be my favorite actor, and anyway, that's all behind us. He got caught up in the Weinstein era. Okay. Protests are made out of the same thing as playing cards. People and poster board. Heavy paper, thin cardboard, guts and wit. Sometimes cotton paper blend just to keep history at our fingertips. Other times plastic coated paper that make it easier to hold and to move. Same polymetric plastic now used instead of steel in the production of firearms, standard issue, like open hands and fists, trading bullets for signs at a rally that just might save the world if we let us, or a riot that just might save our soul if we survive it. Next poem is called This I Pray. And so I come from, my parents are ministers. My father passed away a little over a year ago. My mom's living and is a minister. So I grew up in the church. That is not uncommon for lots of Black kids. And going to church more than you would like to is also not uncommon for lots of Black kids. So, but growing up in the church, right, you know, I always had questions, and I was like the kid that the Sunday school teachers hated because I was like, well, what about dinosaurs? And so this was a little bit of me turning that into a poem as a grown-ass man. Okay, it's called This I Pray. I only learned to pray 2 ways. In silence, waiting for him to speak, or asking for shit. So I said, Jesus, they told me you were poor. How poor were you? Like 2 siblings to a bed poor, or? He says, manger. I say, damn, that's poor, and apologize before thinking, in quotes, when 2 to 4 brothers share a bed, they sleep head to feet, feet to head, cozy as a hashtag. A pair of crosses, cross-stitched, cornrow, weave, a pair of twins dying at the same time, a moment of silence. Even I've grown used to praying and hearing nothing in return. So I ask another, is that you I saw after taking a knee, curled up beside us on the asphalt, sleeping, before they spooned our bodies off to the morgue? I wrote that 2 days after the death of George Floyd. You know, because America's caught up in kneeling, whether it's a professional athlete or kneeling on someone's neck. We have this thing about kneeling in this country, right? So this is called Dial-Up. And this is the beginning of the poems from my father. I've been writing a lot about my father. You know, writers have a certain tool that they use to cope with the world. And I've been writing about grief for years prior to my dad's passing, because he had a very aggressive form of Alzheimer's, so it took his life in a very slow 6 years. So I had a lot of time to consider what the world would be like without my dad, and nothing prepared me for it. And then even after he passed, I was still trying to figure out how to deal with those emotions. And so here's some of the poems I wrote over the course of that summer as it became the 1-year anniversary of his passing. And like Bill, one of my, like I said, one of my mentors, but also like peers, creative peers, I'm putting together a manuscript of essays that aren't poems, they're prose, about just trying to keep my dad's stories alive. Like, and he wasn't a man of many words, but he was a funny guy. And I have lots of stories about him. And so I'm putting together a manuscript about that. So this is called Dial-Up. I put 2,000 miles between us in 2005, between him and his first grandson in 2007, the only time he ever set foot in Albuquerque, between him and my career. He heard me read long poems aloud in Camden once, in Westchester, days after we lost Grandpa in 2005. But in the latter days, he only heard me preach at weddings and funerals. The shortest poem I ever shared at one of those was the one he couldn't hear at his. In the latter years, as his brain started deleting itself, he started repeating himself, I love you, I love you, I love you, but it wasn't a glitch. Why are you so far from home? Was my malfunction. I haven't been home in 8 months now. Pre-pandemic, I flew home 4 to 6 times a year. I wish we were closer now more than ever. I wish for all those times I laid in bed with him, the Sundays I kept him company while mom went to go pasture his flock. I read him poetry instead of paper. All those times he held full-on conversation with ghosts and I held his hands. I wish he could hold my hand today. And even though he's the one now light years away, I hope he stays in touch. If you grew up in like the Judeo-Christian church, I think you understand what a baptism is. This was for him. Baptized.
No.
If I knew it would be your last Father's Day, I would have bathed you. I would have sobbed a drawn bath and given mom a break. I would have sung a chorale of I loves you, enough to make you remember exactly how you did for me. Dad was already a dad. Oh, I jumped into the next poem. That was the end of that poem. See, I told you I don't have titles here. That was the next poem. Let me try it again. Let's run that back. It's a short poem, okay. If I knew it would be your last Father's Day, I would have bathed you. I would have sobbed a drawn bath and given mom a break. I would have sung a chorale of I loves you, I love yous, enough to make you remember exactly how you did for me. Theme. Yes, thank you. This is why, outlines and subheadings, I tell all my students, I'm like, put a title there, kid. It's gonna help you out. Page numbers, right? Where am I at, John? What am I looking at all the time? Before we go down the dad rabbit hole.
We got about 6 minutes.
Okay, 6 minutes, Dougie Fresh, you're on. Another one for Dad. It's called Already. Dad was already a dad, giving birth to a better version of himself. Already a grandfather, center of the universe, and a second son. Already a godfather, resurrecting himself after so many years. Already great-granddad, already better than good, not better than God, but good enough. Already great-great-grand, borderline ancestor, father of nations, no monuments, not yet. Already stepfather, ladder to greatness, father of church, gospel of Rick, father-in-law, freestyle commandments, already ready for the afterlife and the lives he left behind, already a father's father, already a lover, already in love, already a husband, already us. Or dad. The next few poems before they get happier, do they get happier? Yeah, they get happier. Okay, before they get happier are from something that was recent to us in this part of the country. And actually, ironically, when my dad was transitioning, I was on the East Coast watching what was happening at a Walmart in El Paso. And to have your heart broken by your father's passing, and then while you're there, have your heart additionally broken by the type of random violence that can happen in a supermarket or a drugstore, and that being in your backyard, was disappointing. It was disappointing, which is a common American feeling these days, I feel like. So these two poems, the first one is actually in a book that just won a New Mexico Arizona Book Award. So shout out to Michelle Otero, Scott Wigerman, and the folks who put together 22 poems. I was part of a group poem for a vigil that your former poet laureate, Michelle Otero, held after the shooting in El Paso. And I, her, and Jessica Helen Lopez, your second poet laureate, combined on a group piece. So this was the poem I contributed to that. And then the poem after that is a little bit more aggressive about how I was feeling at that time, and it didn't make the group piece. so I'll share both of those now, and then we'll talk about wishing our kids who lost their high school and college graduations a good time, and I'll get out of your way. So it's called El Paso Uno. No one woke up that Saturday morning. No one woke up that Saturday morning with intentions of becoming a back-to-school vigil. No one woke up not expecting to finish out a sophomore year that they had barely begun. No one woke up believing Passageway to the North would take on a whole new meaning. No one woke up wanting to be a headline. No one woke up wanting to be a deadline, a story that no one wanted to write, a story no one wants to write or rewrite or re-like. No one wanted to be a number. No one wanted to be a bilingual hashtag. No one wanted to be punctuated. No one wanted to be period. No one wanted to be in Old English fonts. No one wanted to sprout ink-dry quills. No one wanted to play chamber music in this American roulette. No one wanted this kind of love poem after death. If no one wants to be on the front line of a poem, put me on the front line of a poem. And this one is called Jericho for El Paso, and it kind of combines my very biblical upbringing with, our first 3 or 4 amendments. So it's called Jericho for El Paso, and it actually includes 2 quotes that I have to acknowledge that come from this book by Carrie Kinsolving. And I don't imagine Carrie Kinsolving and I share the same politics, but I do know that this book, which is called What Can We Learn from the Walls of Jericho Falling Down, was quotes from children about God or talking to God. And so I borrowed some of those quotes, and it's only right to give those children who only use first names or initials to protect them because they were children. And Carrie and I, because even if Carrie and I don't always share the same values, I learned something from Carrie's book. So, Jericho for El Paso, which is why you should read books about people who don't agree with you. But anyway, that's later. Jericho. Quote, I think God gave us the Jericho story because he wants to break down the walls of our hearts and let himself in. Jordan, age 8. Where are the walls to keep them out? The porous. Just like the border of every place of worship they've ordained themselves to baptize bloody holy. All because people of faith and family do not worship them, a false idol, Instead, heavily armed with a God complex, reaping in the vestibule of America's most sacred temple, Walmart, on our favorite holiday, back to school. Unsuspecting Saturday Adventists turned bastards, wondering why Daddy had to be sacrificed for the sins of forefathers he didn't commit. Everything is bigger now except grief. No longer burning crosses, now forests, fire bombings. The distance between hate and the innocent is now much more intimate, between a coward and a victim, much less brave, so much whiter than the whites of their eyes. But if they are so supreme, why not evolve instead of erase? 22 bodies stacked are enough to build a wall out of, but that won't keep his kind out. The firewalls couldn't even do that. Quote, "It teaches us that God is stronger than walls." JT, age 8. So the last poem, like I said, is for students that lost their graduation, particularly for art students. These kids are like the gifted and talented kids of the arts around the country. And so this was kind of written to them as a, I see you and I know what you missed this year, and it's not fair, but congratulations, because you've accomplished something and no one can take that away from you. It took me like, a 3-minute poem to say all that, but that's exactly what the poem was about. And it's called Encore. This is not the first time you've painted a smile on your face. And even with the world upside down, you remain unfrowned. This is your day. Accustomed to gowns and costumes, dressing up in dressing rooms, nonetheless, this was supposed to be your practice paparazzi, lights, camera, graduation, a rehearsal for so much more. But here we are, choreographing a new 2-step through this called One Foot in Front of the Other. No senior prom, but we are saving your last dance for the credits. But your time has come. Your now is now, so take a bow. For all the gallery openings that did not open, take your bow. For the official high school hymns unsung, take your bow. For the band that got benched and the studios left vacant, take a bow. Because the world has always been more than just a stage to walk across. Today is an especially blank canvas begging you to jump on or dive in, take your bow. Because the past 4 years has been your life's work to date. And the past few months have felt like a career and a half. You deserve a bow. Because the work, shared or unshared, pays off in the end. For all the standing ovations sacrificed by you and your friends, here's a bow. Somewhere between a stoop and a salute. A diploma is nothing more than sheet music that you produced. And even though we cannot see the future, we can see you. And it's as bright as stage lights, so take these bows. Fold at the waist, arms out of place. You can make it proud. It's a real shame we can't share the same space, so the applause won't quite be as loud. But your now is now, and we are your crowd, so take this bow, because you are no swan song, you are an encore. You are the same day laurels littering an auditorium floor. You are both a palette and a bouquet, and we are all arms, so take a bow. Because stars shine every single night, even when there's no show. Even when the sky's full of clouds and the marquee don't glow, we will continue to bask in the beauty that you emit from the center of your soul, because your dreams are bigger than goals, because your dreams are richer than gold. So we bow, bearing witness to the light and the divine in you. We bow to you making it through. Here, take this bow. Thank you. Bye, everybody.
That's wonderful.
And here's John.
All right. Love the mask.
All right. Okay. Let's hear, Jules, you can unmute people. Let's hear it again for Bill O'Neill and Hakim Bellamy. Yeah. And I'm pleased to announce those of you in TV land that the socially distanced donation basket is almost full. That's great. And those of you at home can also go to the the place that Jules has marked down. I think.
PoetryPlayhouse.com.
PoetryPlayhouse.com to donate. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
All.
I'm going to end the recording now.
We're going to end
we're gonna-
recording, and we're going to continue the Zoom open mic. Jules will be hosting that until I can get back over to
Thank you
Rositas.
again. It was Hakim
Thanks
Bellamy
again to
Bill
everybody.